very well to draw things using perspective principles in a sort of mechanical fashion, but what happens when you've got a picture in your mind's eye? You draw it and then you're just not quite sure if it's right. I'm going to show you some very common mistakes that people make when they're drawing perspective. The first example that we're going to use is Derek the donkey, and here he is. And let's just have a look at what he is up to. So, as you can see, he is busy munching away on this veggie box, and we can see the front edge of this box. I'm going to draw it in red because that's going to be much easier to see. We can see the front face of this box, and the front face of the box is parallel to the bottom of the page here. These run parallel. But at the same time, the person who drew this has also drawn the vertical edge of the box, and this is a problem. Because when you can see the front of the box like this, and it's parallel to the base of the page, that indicates to us that it's 1 point perspective. There's only one vanishing point somewhere hidden behind here, and the sides of the box converge towards that vanishing point. However, if we were looking at the corner on, then it would be 2 point perspective, and we would be seeing the vertical sides of both the front and the side. So what we have to do is say, all right, clearly Derek the donkey has walked his way up to a straight edge of the box here. We're looking at a straight edge of the box here, so this corner is a 90-degree angle, and we are only going to see the top edge of the box like this. So what I'm going to do is just imagine this box is a little bit wider so that we can get a nice convergence. So we'll just draw it a little wider like this. And then we're going to say, imagine that the vanishing point is here, down somewhere on the horizon. Or even not, because that's going to be far too extreme. So let's do it like this. Say we know that the back sides of this box are going to converge. And somewhere behind here, we're going to have the edge of the box like that. And we'll be able to see the back of the box there above the soil. So that's the back edge of the box. We can see it. And this is the front face of the box here that we can see. And these here are the top of the boards making up the sides of the box, but not the vertical sides. And that's 1 point perspective. Now, just to show you how common this is, here are two more examples doing exactly the same thing. Once again, you can see that this is our B box, and we can see the front face like this, and it doesn't change at all, so we're seeing this pretty much straight on. And it's parallel again to the bottom of the page, but we're seeing the side. The person who's drawn it has drawn the side as well. And again, we've got this issue. If we're seeing the front face like that and it's parallel to the bottom of the page, this is 1 point perspective. If we want it to be more interesting, if we want to see both the front and the side, then we have to look at a corner on view. We have to look at it as 2 point perspective. And in that case, we'd be drawing it in a different way altogether. We'd be going like this, a corner at a slight angle like that, and a slight angle like that. And we wouldn't see the top, we'd do this, like this. And this is how we would have our B box if we wanted it to have 2 point perspective. We wouldn't necessarily see the top of it because we're still looking at it from an eye level view here. We're not looking down on it. So we've got, this would be 2 point perspective, eye level view, like that. Or else we could draw it like we did in the previous one, where you'd have to just take this out altogether and just see it front on. But as you can see from this example, it's far, far more interesting to look at something corner on. And that's why 2 point perspective is so useful. Now let's go and have a look at our third example, which is this one. And once again, you can see we have the base of the building, this garden center. Nice and straight. Well, it's not quite straight, but technically it's parallel to the base of the page. And then we're seeing the side, and we're seeing this building, and we're seeing the side of this building. So again, this would be 1 point perspective. So we wouldn't see this vertical edge of the building. What we would see would be this. This building would come right across here, like that, so stepped back, and then there might be another part of the building stepped back. These would just be set in like this, unless we were looking slightly corner on to this building. So if the garden centre was offset in this direction, a little bit further forward, and the characters were a little bit this way, then we might be looking at the corner of the building, and then we might see a little bit of this, the side edges. But as it is, we're looking face on to the garden centre here, and we might see part of these buildings stepped back, but we wouldn't see a great deal of them. So another thing that we could do, if we really wanted to see a little bit, we could do it like this, just slightly less in place like that. So if we did that, there you've got the side of that building. It's not strictly accurate, but it gives you a little bit more of an interesting approach or appearance. And so one could do that if you wanted to. That gives you a sense that you might be looking a little bit at the side of the building. Now, sometimes you have something which is just a bit too complicated to even troubleshoot from a perspective point of view, because it has vanishing points going in so many different directions. So if we were to continue this line along here, it would tell us that eventually these sides are going to converge somewhere out here, but really not in a way that it's practical enough to give us vanishing points. So when we have something like this, which is a complicated little problem, my suggestion is to just find a reference and either trace it a few times until you get a feel for the contours or the facets, or just copy it straight. Because these sorts of things are much, much easier drawn from a reference and just directly copied than imagined in your mind. Our minds are never that accurate when it comes to drawing something like this from memory. Here's another tricky little problem, a very picturesque bench, but something a little bit wonky about it. Is it the perspective or is it something else? Now this is corner on, so we've got 2-point perspective here, but we're not going to worry so much about the perspective. Let's just troubleshoot it in terms of symmetry. So if you look at this end of the bench, it kind of does that. And this end would do a similar thing like that. So we need to correct how that leg goes. And then we can look at it and say, all right, well, we know that it would have a vanishing point. There would be a vanishing point somewhere way out here, probably. You know what? I'm going to take the base of it. Take the vanishing point out there somewhere. That to there. That gives us something more to work with. So we know that each of these lines going off that vertical would head off towards this vanishing point. So we can troubleshoot this using our vanishing point principles, knowing that these lines are going to converge somewhat as they go towards that side, like that. It's not desperately important, but it does help us to get it more accurate. We could also say, well, where would be the midpoint of the bench to get that beautiful decoration? And remember our little trick from the 4-poster bed? If we just divide this space like this, we know that the middle of the bench would be about there. So it's pretty spot on accurate the way that it's drawn. So let me take that out. And then we can just work from here. This would go more like that, because remember, it's got to be at 90 degrees. Imagine this is 90 degrees, and this is 90 degrees. That one's pretty accurate. So it's going to go like that, and then that leg will go out the front. And that way you're going to have your bench more accurate.